ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team. Step back, we gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show part of your daily routine. Normally I say Monday through Friday, but this is now 7 days a week I'm podcasting. 7 days a week during the NBA Finals. It's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of Celtics content, but that's what the people want. People want more Celtics content, so I am going to give it to you. It's free, it's available everywhere podcasts exist. You can watch the show on YouTube as well, getting close to the 6,800 subscribers, trying to get to 7,500 by the end of the NBA Finals, which is appropriate. 75th anniversary season, 7,500. Let's make that happen by the end of the 75th anniversary season. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, and I was one of the media voters for the 75th anniversary team. Getting back into Game 2, a little bit of a deeper dive. I'll bring in my good friend Tom Westerholm to discuss more deeply the Celtics' loss to the Golden State Warriors in Game 2. You know, let's just get this out of the way because it's one of the stupidest conversations that I've had to have, and I always hate having this conversation. But the officiating conversation is something that came up, and I mentioned it in yesterday's podcast. My feeling is that I hate talking about the officiating because if you are impacted by the officiating, there's generally something else, almost always something else that you can do, other opportunities during the course of the game to overcome that. And it's not it's not saying like, oh, the refs weren't bad or the refs were good or anything like that. It's not necessarily that we're saying the officials were whatever, like they didn't impact the game. My point is always, okay, yeah, the officials impacted the game, but the players should overcome that. And so let's just start there. I think the players should have overcome that. The Celtics were down 6 with 4 and change to go. There was opportunity there for the Celtics to win this game, to be in this game in the fourth quarter. They blew it. It had nothing to do with the officials. Tom, you were privy to some of this conversation, which a lot of it happened online. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, mine's very similar to yours. I also hate having those conversations because, like, there's really no winning it, right? It's like, okay, even if you go back through, right? Like, let's say you go back through the film and you're like, okay, Draymond tackled Grant Williams and Grant Williams got called for a foul. Let's say, you find all the plays, you go down the list. It's like, okay, now what? Right? It's like, it's kind of the same thing as the last 2 minutes report. What does that do for you? Look, I thought the officiating was pretty tough. Like, I didn't think it was very good. And I think the Celtics would agree with me on that one, which, no surprise there. I mean, I think it's a somewhat bad look for the league that Al Horford said, that the officiating was, I believe the word he used was different. And he was very specific about it. And he was like, and I think the part that I think wasn't a great look was, and we expected it to be different. Like, yeah. Horford sort of said the quiet part out loud, that the Celtics expected the officiating to be different. Look, all of that is 100% true. And even still, I mean, look, like, and you can go down the line, right? It did affect the game that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown had 2 fouls very quickly. Like, objectively, it did. Look, I mean, and also, Tatum's second foul was a no questions asked foul, right? Like, he fouled Steph Curry. So, like, you can say that the officiating affected the game, and maybe you're right. And now what? Right? Like, it's now what?
Right.
That's like the end of the conversation. You can't have an interesting conversation after that as long as you're talking about the officiating. So I'm right there with you. I think the players, like if the Celtics really did expect the officiating to be quote unquote different, then they should have been ready to play quote unquote different, and they weren't. And now it's 1-1. Not a disaster, not the end of the world, but it is, it is what it is.
The argument that is made is that the officiating took the guys out of the game, that they now they don't like playing in that slow down type of game. They don't like playing that style of game, and the Celtics were forced into a style of play by the officiating that they just didn't like, so they didn't play well, which I think is absolute horse crap. Like, I cannot stress this enough. People who make this argument are flat out insulting the Celtics. You are calling the Celtics babies. You're calling the Celtics weak by saying this. That, oh God, I got 2 fouls, man. I can't play the way I want. Like, shut the hell up and go out there and play, right? And every player, yeah, I get being pissed off about calls. Jaylen Brown after the game was pissed off.
Yes, he was.
About the calls.
Yes, he was.
I get it. But you're paid a lot of money to get over that kind of stuff. You're paid a lot of money to be better in those moments. And the refs didn't make the Celtics throw some of the passes that they threw.
Right.
That's where they lost the game. The Celtics, despite the officiating, despite all that, were only down 2 at the half. And they were down 6 with 3 minutes or 4:17 to go in the third quarter. They were within reach. And I didn't see a call at the 4:17 mark that changed the game.
Right.
I didn't see, none of them had 4 fouls at that point, right? Like, they had the 2 early fouls, but they actually cleaned it. Like, they weren't in foul trouble late in the game. So
no, you could make the case that from the second quarter on, the Celtics really weren't in any foul trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the excuse then? What's the excuse for what was the ultimate run? Was it 17-0 or 19-2, 24-2, some craziness? What's the excuse then? Because that's not the officials. It's never the officials there. So it bothers me that I have to talk about it. But you know what? There are a certain segment of the fandom that demands that is the conversation, and that's where I get that conversation. That's where the conversation comes from. And my other point is, be careful as fans of the Boston Celtics of what you're asking for, because Ime Udoka has a stated philosophy of they can't call them all. Don't be afraid to go get a foul.
Yep.
He's said that. That's his whole thing with Derek White. Go out there, be physical. They can't call all the fouls. So if you really want to go tit for tat, expect the other side to be like, okay, sure. Here's 10 minutes of the Celtics committing fouls that weren't called. And, what about those? People only watch the offensive end when Tatum was fouled a couple of times when he drove, and they ended up in turnovers. Fine. Jaylen, same thing. But also some of those that people are arguing were fouled weren't.
Yeah.
Like Draymond got Tatum, and Tatum like throws hands in the air. But when you get the ball first and you follow through and hit the arm, it's not a foul.
Right.
And you sit there and you say, oh, we got him on the arm. Be like, got the ball first.
Right.
So people have to be careful about this and what you're asking for. And I'm dominating this conversation, but part of why I hate having this conversation, because it takes away from the actual mistakes that these guys made and the actual things that they did wrong and the actual things that they could have done to win the game, despite, even if you say, yeah, well, it was 60-40. The calls were 60-40 in favor of Golden State. Sure, fine. I accept that. But I just watched 20 minutes worth of game film clips that was like, man, they made a lot of mistakes, man. They made a lot of mistakes.
Well, and crucially, I think it's something to your first point that you were making that I think is really important. like you can say, right, like that the refs took the Celtics out of the game in the first quarter. But the thing about the Celtics has always been that they don't like that this team manages to bounce back from things. So if your case is that the Celtics were taken out of the game in the first quarter and that extended through the rest of the game, like through the rest of the game, a
Right.
48-minute NBA basketball game, then I think the Celtics didn't deserve to win. So, and I also would say from watching that game that the Celtics did not deserve to win. So I'm sure we're about to get into all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's truly, that is the extent of the conversation that I feel like you can have about the refs is, yeah, I also thought that they had a tough game. And here we are. Let's talk about some other stuff.
Let's talk about some other stuff. But my last thing is that so many people say that things were rigged or influenced or whatever. I'm like, okay, if you believe that, why are you watching?
Yeah.
Why would you watch a game where you're like, well, half the time it's rigged? Why would you watch? Well, that's like getting mad at a slot machine for not paying out. Like the slot machines are rigged to pay out at a certain amount of time. Like when you don't get your jackpot, it's like, well, that's because the machine is fixed and that wasn't when it was programmed to pay out. So I don't play the slots. Why would I want to do that? So I don't know, man. I can't wrap my head around that. All right, so that's it. That's it. Done. Enough. That's the officiating talk. People ask for it. That's the officiating talk. That's what you get from us and the official. That's it. Because you know why? Because we like to talk about actual basketball. We'll talk about actual basketball, turnovers, defensive things, offensive things, all kinds of things. When we come back, first, let's talk about things like Prize Picks. If you're looking for a daily fantasy option for the NBA, you can still do that with Prize Picks. Even though it's the NBA Finals, there are still a few games left, so you can use the award-winning app Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy, and I know a lot of people who really love this app. They cannot wait to tell me how much they love this app when they see me at the Garden. It's easy to use. Basically, you get 2 to 5 players. You pick an over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry. And this is really the best part. You versus the projected numbers. That's it. It's not you versus me. It's not you versus some experts. It's not you versus people with algorithms and stuff like that. It's you and the points. So you make your entries, which is like 60 seconds or less. You pick whatever points scored, rebounds, steals. You can even do mixed sports. You can use baseball. You can do UFC. You can do you can mix sports here and pick over-unders between them all to end up winning maybe even more. And the picks can be made in 60 seconds or less, like I said, and it's safe, offers fast withdrawals. And right now, you get an exclusive no-brainer of an offer. You get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. It's basically free money. You got to use the code NBA, though. It's an exclusive offer just for Locked On Celtics fans. Sign up today. Use the code NBA. $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. And I really would like some more information as to why you make Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. So we have put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and watchers like you that make your favorite Locked On podcast. We want to make those Locked On podcasts even better. So whichever podcast you listen to, Locked On Celtics, Locked On NBA, which I also host, please go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. Get started. It doesn't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey qualifies for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. So take the audience survey, go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. Really do appreciate you helping out, help make the show better, because that's what I want to do, make the show better. Let's bring Tom back in. And Tom, I saw you tweeted out the passes to no one. This is like the Simpsons escalator to nowhere. It's just passes to no one that the Celtics were making. And in my view of the game, that plays into a lot of the offensive issues, the defensive issues. I think the overarching theme, if I want to put like a sign or the headline on this, it's trying to do too much. That the Celtics are, when they're overpassing or they get in too deep, Jaylen Brown is notorious for this. Get down, get into the middle of the lane, get into the restricted area. Oh, crap, I'm stopped. Jump and look around. And where do I go? And make a pass to nobody. Other guys do it. On the defensive end, I saw 2 instances of Grant Williams just leaving his guy to go chase Steph Curry. And I really have no idea if he was supposed to do that. And I guess that's one of the questions that will be asked at practice on what day is it? Tuesday? I don't even know what day it is anymore. I've been traveling. I think my brain is still in Oakland. But I don't know. What do you think? I think the Celtics, and it's I guess this is good intentions, but bad execution. Continuously, when they get into trouble, it's because they are trying to do too much.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, and I think the one is that they're trying to do too much, and I think two is like this Warriors defense is different. Like it's a very different defense, and I think when you look at what the Bucks and the Heat did, right? Like so much of their defense was just predicated on just literally and figuratively throwing haymakers, right? Like it's just like a very physical defense, just like smacking you around. I think the Warriors positioning is just so much better. Like they are just in the right place a lot of the time. They're reading the game really, really well. And I think so far the Celtics have had some trouble adjusting to that. I think we've seen some of these like really fast decisions that they've been making are just, they're bad decisions, but they're also influenced by the fact that, maybe earlier in the playoffs, guys weren't where the Warriors are, right? Like the Warriors are just in places that the Heat and the Bucks weren't. So I think it is twofold. Like the Celtics certainly, I mean, there were a lot of in the clip that I sent out. I mean, there's one play by Marcus Smart, which I think is one of the worst passes I've seen him throw this season, where the Celtics run this horn set. Tatum curls all the way around it. He's going into the paint. And I don't know if Smart was throwing it where Tatum was supposed to come out or what was going on there, but just threw it so like nobody's there. It's just a perfect pass to the Warriors. I mean, so there were passes like that. There were plays like that where it was just really unforced errors. But I think, I think it is twofold. Like I think this Warriors defense is showing why it was the second best defense in the NBA. Why during the regular season it was better than Milwaukee and better than Miami's. It's a really smart group. A really tough group. And I think especially as you watch Steph Curry just get better and better at defense, it's tough to score on these guys.
Let's look at this. We'll do this for the people on Twitter, but let's call up Tom's tweet. We got this. All right, yeah. Okay, so this is the pass, and I will narrate for the people who aren't watching, so you're not left out. Okay, horn set. So basically the setup is Marcus Smart up top, Jayson Tatum on the left above the 3-point line, Grant Williams on the right, and Tatum is setting a screen for supposed to be setting a screen on Curry, but he goes
way under it.
Curls. Okay, so right. So he's not, it looks like he's setting a screen, but then the play is actually to come off of Grant Williams, who screens Peyton, and Otto Porter slides. He reads that. And so Tatum goes from the left side, curls around Grant Williams on the right. You've got Derek White on one side spaced. You've got Al Horford on the other side spaced. Kevon Looney is not really concerned about Al Horford. So as he sees Tatum coming around, he steps in. So that one element here, that Looney is cutting off the kind of like that path, which Smart sees, but Tatum I don't think does. Also, Tatum, come off with some force, man. Like that timing is way off. He comes off and the speed is just like he slows down a little bit. Like it's almost like he didn't expect the pass to come from Marcus.
Well, to me, it almost looks like he did see Kevon Looney, and he just thought that, okay, well, Looney's got me cut off, so Smart's not going to throw this pass. Yeah,
right, and that the pass, what it should have been, what Smart have seen, and this is easy for me to say, 45 seconds into this.
Of course,
once Looney comes in, Smart should have just thrown that skip pass to Horford.
Right?
Yeah, that's where that play was. But that bounce pass was going to where Tatum should have been. Tatum slows down a tick, and that throws the whole timing off. That one is on. I think that one's more on Jayson Tatum.
Ooh, interesting. I think Smart just needs to be smarter and not throw that pass. But regardless, one way or the other, it's a terrible play.
And I'm not saying it's entirely on Tatum, but I think Tatum slowed down.
Yeah.
And I think if he had come off with some force there and some speed, he would have gotten to that spot where Smart threw the ball. But also a little fake there, and then a skip pass over to Horford was the better play.
Yeah.
Because once Looney steps in, you throw that play, and then Horford can up fake, go past Looney, and then you have something else happening there.
Well, because the other thing is, like, even if Tatum does get that ball, he's in the post against Looney, which, like, you know, he could probably make something happen, but like that's like the place where Looney is the most equipped to deal with Tatum.
You're right. Where does that get him? And that's okay. That's a good point. That does throw a few more points in the Marcus Smart fault category. Because honestly, though, because one of the elements that people don't, I think, fully grasp to passing in that sense is who are you passing to, and where does the pass get them?
Right.
And if you're throwing, you could throw a great pass to Peyton Pritchard down on the block, and it's like, well, that's great, but you threaded a needle, and Peyton Pritchard now has the ball, and like the trees are around him. So, what does that get you? And just like that, Tatum. Okay, so say Tatum does what I said he should have done.
Yeah,
and he gets the ball. Where does that leave Tatum? I guess with the ball in the paint, and then he can maybe try to bury his shoulder and a little jump hook on Looney, but it's still
that's not where he excels, right? And I mean, to your point, there's a play, Daniel Tice had one turnover, and it was not his fault, right? Like the play was, Tatum is coming up in transition, and he threads this tough pass to Daniel Tice, who then it tries to Tice was always going to be cut off on that play, so Tice tries to swing the ball to the corner. So I believe Grant Williams for an open three. That's not what Daniel Tice does. Daniel Tice is not a catch the ball on the roll and kick it out like in transition. Like that turnover should be on Jayson Tatum. And that's I feel like that was really indicative of what was wrong with the Celtics. A lot of the night was just what are you trying to accomplish with this? Like, what was this meant to do? And again, I think some of that's the Warriors, right? The Warriors made them make these plays to where it's like, what are you trying to accomplish here? But I mean, you string enough of those, what are you trying to accomplish plays together? And the Warriors are going to go on a 20-0 run and blow you out. So here we are.
Let's actually look at this Tice play. Again, I will narrate for the people at home listening. And let's see here. So right away is Tice gets the rebound, gets it over to Jayson Tatum, who's now bringing the ball up. Now Tice runs straight up the middle, and Tatum throws this bounce pass. I mean,
nice bounce pass,
but it goes right to my point from before.
Yeah,
Great pass. Now you've put in the middle of the floor Daniel Tice running at full speed, catching the ball above the 3-point, right at the 3-point line. His heel is on the 3-point line. So Daniel Tice running down the middle of the floor, full speed, great bounce pass, but now it's like, oh crap, here comes Otto Porter. And that's not where you throw him the ball, because it was a great idea to get it out to Grant, but Grant is doing what he's doing. Like, the further the play goes down, Grant's on the left sideline, he's looking for the corner three, and an actual guard would make that play, but Daniel Tice wouldn't. And you're 100% right. This is a play. That's exactly what I was talking about before. You put this guy in the wrong spot. Don't even make that pass. Get it up to Derek White, who's running down the right sideline. Now you've got to account for him. Derek White can either throw an alley-oop to Tice, or White can go down the baseline and whip one of those passes to Grant in the corner.
Or just get a layup. It's Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole's not a good defender.
Right. Or just get a layup. So yeah, that's the exact stuff that I'm talking about. That it's a good point. Trying to do too much. The Celtics are just trying to do too much. And it's an old bad habit. It's an old bad habit that they all have, that they are when things start to go wrong, somebody's like, well, I got to do something. I got to make a play. And they're at their best when they're not trying to make a play. They're trying to make the right play. And if they just calm down sometimes, they'll be okay. Just calm down. Don't go overboard. Just don't overpenetrate. Don't make a fancy middle of the lane, middle of the floor bounce pass to your center on a fast break. Just be smart. Be smart out there. And this is why the Warriors are the Warriors. And this goes back to my whole experience versus the youth and all of that. The Warriors, I don't think, are better than the Celtics. I think they're pretty even. This should be a good series. This continues, but the Warriors are smarter in the sense that they don't often make those kinds of mistakes. They make plenty of mistakes, but they don't make those kind of mistakes. You just don't see that. Like Steph Curry tries to do too much because that's just what he is. He's a too much guy.
Yeah.
But you let him get away with that. But let's take a second here. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show. First, let's talk about Built Bar. I know Built Bar is a huge part of my daily routine. And now they've got caramel brownie. Well, they got all these new things. They had the Built Puffs. They got the Built granola bars. Now they put out caramel brownie, a new flavor. If you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie, caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top is unbelievable. With 17 grams of protein and 130 calories. 130 calories, that's it? 4 grams of sugar, that's it? That's crazy. Forget about dessert. Have a caramel brownie bar from Built.com. And that's gonna do it for you. You get the 130 calories, which is really a lot less than anything else you're gonna get to satisfy that sweet tooth. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they're made with collagen protein, so your body absorbs that 17 grams of protein more efficiently, and so it has tons of health benefits. There are a million reasons why you should try Built Bars. For now, let's just say that caramel brownie will rock your world, and that is not really an understatement. Go to Built.com. It's tasty, it's healthy, and you can get your box of caramel brownie bars right now. You can also get 15% off of those caramel brownie bars with the promo code LOCKED15. You can use LOCKED15 every single time. Every time you go to Built.com, whatever you buy, LOCKED15 is going to get 15% off your order. All right, Tom, the Warriors did some interesting defensive things too. It's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics adjust. I think the Celtics have some answers for, the Draymond on, like, there are sets. They have plenty of sets that they can run that take advantage of, Draymond being aggressive and all of that. I guess going back to the first topic that we had here, it also would help if they didn't let Draymond Green like run block a lot of times and like hook. I'm not somebody that's going to complain about the refs, like I said in the first segment, but you also do have to like not let Draymond get away with the egregious stuff. It was a little bit outrageous there.
Well, and if again, not to be too much of a ref focused person here, but I also think that in the spirit of the Celtics thinking that Game 2 was always going to be different, Game 3 might be different in a different way, or
Right.
might be a little bit less different, shall we say? So,
right.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's all true. I also think, look, Draymond, like, I get why he annoys Celtics fans. I get why he annoys, fans of pretty much any team
Everybody,
that he's not on. Yeah,
everybody.
100%. But I also think, like, you watch the way he's directing that defense out there. It's really impressive. I mean,
Mhm.
I was watching basically what happened on every Jayson Tatum miss. And there's one play where he and Clay are both hanging out, waiting for Tatum to make his move, and you see Draymond kind of flick his hand at Clay as Tatum starts to drive. Like, no, I'm guarding Horford. You're guarding Derek White. Derek White is less of a 3-point threat. You go get Tatum. Clay comes over, may have fouled Tatum, I'm not sure, but it's like, it's a really nice defensive play. It's like, I mean, that's the kind of thing. Like, he's directing the defense, he's making things happen. There's another play where, Rob is in the dunker spot. Andrew Wiggins has to jump off to help Tatum. It should have been an easy lob to Rob, but here comes Draymond coming down to stop, Rob in the dunker spot
Mhm.
from taking that lob. I mean, he's everywhere. He's a really, really smart defender. I mean, look, again, I think it's a matter of sort of like saying the quiet part out loud when he's like, I've earned my reputation. I've sort of earned the things that I'm able to get away with. And it's like the thing is, he has built this now. Like, he's able to get away with these things. And like, I mean, he's kind of backed the NBA into a corner. So the Celtics need to figure out how to counter all of that, because, yeah, if Draymond gets his first technical, he's going to be allowed to do whatever he wants the rest of the way. Like, it's just kind of baked in, and you have to figure out how to counter that. You might not like it, but like, again, it kind of comes down to, if you're going to, like, are you going to complain about it, or are you going to try to win? That, to me, I don't know. That's kind of where I come down on it.
Right. It's kind of funny, speaking of technicals, with Ime Udoka's technical, where he was like, I let them know on purpose to get the technical. Like, everything was just like very like robotic. Like,
Well,
yeah,
it was funny because it was like he started his sentence and then he wanted to like make sure. He's like, the quote was, "I just let them know how I felt throughout the game in a demonstrative way, on purpose, to get a technical." Like,
yeah.
he wanted to leave no room for interpretation. He's like, "I
Just,
wanted that technical."
yeah. And you look, that sometimes that's the answer, right?
Yeah,
Like,
sometimes.
you sometimes you just got to be like, you know what, you can't let, if somebody gets a tech, like, you can't let that kind of like emasculate you. You can't let that just turn you into like, if he earns a second tech, then give it to him. Like, that's the answer. And no, it shouldn't have been on that double technical with the Jaylen Brown thing. That was a nothing play to me. I
I
know
agree.
Jaylen was pissed, and the leg was on. It's like, whatever. I wasn't on the floor, so I'm sure there might have been some stuff said or done or whatever that I didn't see. But from what I saw, it was a nothing play. Everybody get up, everybody move on. But
Honestly, and during the regular season, I think everybody would have been like, "Hey, good for the refs for, one, not calling a tech, on Draymond, and two, not calling a tech on Jaylen for being understandably mad that he had a foot on his face." It's like,
yeah,
I think generally speaking, you'd be like, "Hey, good, like, let's keep it moving, like, no techs."
so, but we'll see how that's handled in the next game. But Draymond had a huge impact defensively. I also loved Al Horford, where he was asked, what kind of impact did Draymond Green have? Like, and I was like, no impact. He's like, none, not really. Because
Which,
I don't think,
again, okay, Al.
yeah, I don't think Al wanted to give in to that, but like,
Yes.
yeah, Draymond was, because he did the flex thing again, and Al got him back with the flex. And for people who are questioning, Al was definitely trolling Horford. I mean, Draymond with that flex in game one. He'll get him again. He'll get him
Yeah,
again
he will.
in this. Don't worry about that. He will get him again. But look, you do have to account for Draymond, and he he makes that Warriors defense kind of what it is. And if he didn't get hurt during the course of the season and miss so much of the season, he'd be the defensive player of the year. I know for a fact that that's the guy that people wanted to vote for, but he missed too many games. And so the Rudy fatigue and all, and ended up with Marcus Smart, a deserving candidate. But, I think everybody understands, like, Draymond, the way he directs that, with his history and all of that stuff, I'm sure people would have voted for him over Marcus. It's just how it goes. But how do the Celtics handle that? How do they take him out of that? And sometimes he's been offensively such a detriment to the Warriors. You can take him out and be like, okay, now we can score, but now the Warriors are going to be able to score. So like there's a like kind of like in between of like how much Draymond you do still want him on the floor some, you just don't want him on the floor enough. Like if you're trying to score and like you've got a lead that you're trying to build.
Well, I think the funny thing about the Warriors is they have several guys like that, and they've just done such a nice job of stringing them all together. Like at least in game 2, they did. Like Gary Payton, I know he made that 1-3, but like that dude is not not much of a scorer. And like, so you're like, okay, on the one end, obviously he's impacting the game defensively, and on the other end, he's not giving them anything. And there's lineups where it'd be really hard to play him, or the inverse of that being, hey, like you can play Jordan Poole off the floor. Are you sure you want to? Because that guy is a target. But on the other end, yeah, he also might hit a half court shot on you. So it's
Right.
like, the Warriors have some like several of those conundrums that it's interesting because it's a conundrum based on the results, right? It's like in game 1, it's a conundrum for the Warriors, like, oh boy, how do we even play Jordan Poole? And in game 2, it's like it's the Celtics where it's like, geez, I want this guy on the floor because I want to attack him, but I really need him to stop making threes. So it'll be interesting to see how that conundrum shifts between the two teams the rest of the way.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see. In the meantime, the Celtics will be practicing at the TD Garden, not at their practice facility. Practice facility is kind of done for the season. They'll still be there, but interesting adjustments. Like I wonder, like those little tweaks, those little things, like having to go to the arena for practice. I wonder how much that impacts people because you're supposed to come home and have home court, but now all of a sudden everything's different. We get to watch for the first time. We get to watch a half hour of the team's practice. Like I got to see, like, and it's not even like Ime's not even messing around. Like, all right, the first half hour is going to be like dick around shooting drills. Like they were running their zone offense. They were actually running. Like I saw the play where, Horford comes up and sets the screen and they find the guy in the corner for 3. They were running through that in the, media open thing. So I assume any of the Warriors could be, I mean, they all know their plays, but
right.
I do wonder, how much this change impacts how these guys get ready for these games.
Yeah. It has to an extent, right? Like, I mean, it's one of those things I was, obviously it's wildly silly to ever compare any level of basketball that we've ever played to those guys. But like I remember one time in like a men's league, I like we played, on these like on the sideways courts the whole season.
Yeah.
I shot the lights out. Like that was the only 40 piece I've ever had was on those sideways courts because like I just loved something about the lighting there. And then we had like the big nice court for the championship. I probably went like 1 for 14 because I just could not figure it out. Right? Like it's like little things can screw you up. Now these are NBA players, and I doubt that that's the case for them. But I still wanted to get the anecdote out there where I scored a 40 piece one time. So.
There you go. I'm glad I was able to tee that up for you.
Thank you for that. I needed that.
Tom_NBA, Tom_40 piece. Thanks for hopping on, man.
Oh, I like that. That's a new handle. I might lose I'm going to lose my blue check for that one. But yeah.
I love it. We'll be back with another podcast previewing game 3. So make sure you're subscribed 7 days a week. Podcast is going 7 days a week now. So you will not be lacking for Celtics content. It's the number 1 Celtics podcast in the world. It is top 10 on Apple basketball podcast rankings and floating somewhere around that top 50 on Apple's all sports podcast ranking. So that's awesome. Thank you all for that. That means that you've been listening and sharing the podcast and all of that stuff. So all the people subscribing, if you haven't yet, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can watch the show on YouTube. That's been a lot of fun to get the show up on YouTube over the past season, really. And, all the sharing that you've been doing, keep on doing it. Tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.